ninja, JK, dupla, jinxa, bota, chakra em cada linha de faca, faz macramé no micado, paz, espadas por frases, sintático, repara no que diga, é paradigmático, não tenho paralelo, sou para lá de mágico, sabes como eu rolo, martelo pneumático, técnica secreta do monstro roxo, estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter comos no jogo, só com uma espada nos tojos, plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem, nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave, mãe, tu sabes bem. Somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster Jinx cabrão, respeito ao baixo, comer tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai. Vivo na espunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, ninja, frotas imperiais. E bate mal, logo bate mais. A minha cru não sem espelhos. Na rua, dragão azul, dragão vermelho. Sento o silêncio. Verso shinobi, nunca me canso. Sou de Nairobi, ágil como um ninja. Rápido como um ninja, letal como um ninja. Brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja. Forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja. Devo mesmo ser um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus? Ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus? Ninjas, 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 ninjas.
And we are live, everyone, and a good evening in the USA. A happy Memorial Day to everyone. And for those of you who aren't in the US, I guess it's like 4 or 5 hours past work. So hope you enjoyed your work day. Welcome to another episode of Top 5 Collaborations with the Westerosi Ninja, that's me, and the Dawg Show as usual. And tonight we will be going through our top 5 moments of a gem of an episode, which is called The Iron Throne, Season 8, Episode 6, the finale of the Game of Thrones TV series. And yep, we're about a week late, so but it's good time than any to talk about this episode because this episode will be hanging on with us forever and ever and ever. So for me, it was really fun to pick through my favorite moments. And how was it for you, Dawg? What was it like? Torture?
Yeah, it was kind of like getting like kicked in the groin area by like a giant, like about the size of 1-1. Right, so that's what it felt like for the first few days, right? So now that's kind of gone away a little bit, right? So now I'm just kind of feel it in the stomach a little bit, you know, just kind of like losing a Game 7 in the World Series. It kind of feels like to me right now. So, but yeah, that's what I called it. I think it was a gem of an episode, Milt. Yeah, and yeah, going through it, going through the list though. I just tried to make it fun as I possibly could for myself. So there's probably going to be a little satire from me tonight. You're probably not going to see a whole lot of venom, if you will, right? But like I think last week I told you that the episode 5 I thought was the worst episode I'd ever seen out of any of the Game of Thrones episodes, right? So I think out of the 73 episodes that we've had now, the Iron Throne, in my opinion, which is I think it's a pretty strong opinion because it's my own. My opinions are always valid to me, always. And I think this was the worst episode I've ever seen, ever in a game out of Game of Thrones, right? So, that's just my honest feeling right now, as of today. This is definitely the worst episode I've ever seen.
So, if The Last Jedi was like a 10 on your scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best, what would Game of Thrones episode 6 be?
It would be right in there. You know what? I'd give it because I gave The Last Jedi a 1, and that was just because it's a 1. I have to go 1 through 10. I can't give a 0. Yeah. Right. So I give it a 1, but I give this one a 1.1 because I didn't see any porgs or something ridiculous like that. Right. So something that was just like complete cheesy marketing attempt right out of it. So I mean there was some attempts at there was some great looking scenes, if you will. I mean even The Last Jedi had some great looking scenes too, but it didn't mean the story was great or, that the ending was, that the story writing was valid in my opinion, basically, for lack of a better term right now, Milt.
And there you guys have it. Dawg isn't using integers anymore. He is actually using floating point numbers to really finely divide his scale of ratings. And yeah, I agree. I mean, it wasn't great. Okay, I thought it was kind of like average for the season, but the season in whole was sort of disappointing. You know, like everybody's saying how rushed it was, and yeah, it was pretty obvious here. And you know, the ending was, you know, it was pretty Lord of the Rings in a way, and I think it's been described that way in a few media streams. And you know, I mean, it kind of reminded me after it ended, it kind of reminded me of like the last episode of Seinfeld. Okay, if anybody remembers that back in the 90s, where they were all kind of stuck in the jail cell at the end. I mean, I felt kind of like that way also, being stuck in a jail cell, just kind of wondering, is this it? No, you know, is this it? So anyway, and that was it. So it was kind of empty, right? You know, you basically went in, you know, before the show, you know, with a lot of hype and a lot of expectations, and it just kind of made you feel empty afterwards. I mean, it was sort of satisfying, I guess, but you know, in the whole scheme of things, in terms of, you know, in the whole scheme of the season at least, and how, you know, how it was written. But you know, I guess, you know, I could have wished, I wished for more, and I'm sure that you wished for more as well, Dawg. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you know,
yeah,
to take away something you said there at the end there, because like when we look at the end overall, it is kind of nice for the viewer at the end of it, because now you know, the viewer on their own can go, you know what, in my mind, this is what happens to Jon Snow eventually, right? This is what happens to Sansa. This is what happens to Arya. You know, there's so many, like, you know, there could be so many different little spin-off series that they could, you know, go. Not that they're going to do that, right? But that's kind of how it felt. It felt like they were kind of setting up a new series, possibly, right, with one of the you know, storylines, right?
Yep. So great. So anyway, guys, that is it for the season. And excuse the typo there. Episode is really episode 6, not episode 5. And before we get going on our top 5 list, guess what we need to do, Dawg? What do you think we need to do?
You know, and you know what? And I noticed that Mr. Phantom D Saints here, and he loves numbers. Okay. Right? And so, you know, shout out to Phantom D Saint out there, folks, and great to see everybody here too tonight. And we're going to do some numbers, Mel.
Yes, we are going to do some numbers, and this is just basically what we've been doing the entire season. We're basically going through the viewership numbers. The viewership numbers basically for the first airing of the episode, live airing, right? So it doesn't include like people watching it, you know, 24 hours later or anything like that. And basically what you can see here is that episode 6 is the most watched HBO episode of all time for a live airing. So it hit 13.6 million viewers, okay, when it first aired last weekend, which is pretty impressive. So again, most watched HBO episode, and I basically just ran through the numbers and calculated an average for the 6 episodes of this season, and we came up with an average of about 11.68 million viewers per episode during the season, which is, you know, about, you know, 1.42 million on average more viewers this season than last season. So that's where we ended up with in terms of the numbers. And there's definitely, you know, there's from season 1 to season 8, there's definitely, you know, this really big ramp up, and especially in the last 2 seasons, you saw this ramp up hit pretty hard. So yeah, what do you think about this, Dawg? Most watched episode ever in HBO.
I you know, we expected this, Mel, you know, talking about this. I think prior week we fully expected the last episode to be the highest number rated ever. I think we did an over under of 13. I think that's what I thought it was going to do, a little over 13. But I didn't think it was going to do like you know, over 14 or 15. Now this could work one of 2 ways. So, you know, like I told folks my feelings on the episode, right, and kind of how it ended, you know, kind of on a sour note, and my feeling, you know, the way I'm feeling, it ended kind of sourly. I don't know if sourly is a word, but I'm going to make it up tonight if it isn't. You know, if there's more folks like me, like let's just say there's, you know, 50% of the folks are a little upset. You know, that's a lot of folks to upset. You know, with this last episode, you know, if, you know, I've noticed a lot of the numbers from, you know, say like Metacritic, the user scores, it was the lowest rated episode in the history. It was like a 2.7. I'm not sure what it was on Rotten Tomatoes as far as how it panned out with the critics.
Yeah.
But I know it was definitely on a downward spiral.
Yeah.
As we moved on into the season. So, and I mentioned this, I think prior to, I was kind of concerned about the prequel series that's coming up. Right? Is this gonna tick off a lot of fans, if you will? And they might just say, hey, you know what? I'm not even going to touch this prequel series now. And I'm going to, just because I'm a diehard Game of Thrones fan, and I'm definitely going to watch it. Right, just like I'm going to definitely watch episode 9. I'll definitely, probably watch it. But are there folks that are just kind of like your Joe Lunchbucket average user person, right? That isn't as deep as, like, say, folks like us, right? Where we're in communities talking about the shows and things of that nature, right? So I'm just wondering, is that going to bring them back to watch the prequel? What do you think?
Well, I mean, let's think about it this way, okay? What were you doing back in 2011 when season 1 first hit? Did you even have an idea that Game of Thrones was even, was it even a blip on your radar screen?
Right. Well, yeah, like I had heard of it.
Yeah, Zach. Yeah.
But then it just kind of like passed me up because I was so in depth with like Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
And, yeah. So I just kind of was not really watching television, I don't think, at that time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So what I feel like is that the prequel is going to be just like that, right? Your average show watcher, the people who are going to make the bulk of, like, this 11.6 million average, right, in season 8, aren't even going to know or even going to think about, what the prequel is. And then, it's just going to build hype and hype again, like, from seasons 1 through 4, in Game of Thrones, right? And then at the end, like maybe in the last couple of seasons of the prequel, okay, if it does last for more than 5 seasons, or however many seasons it ends, then the build up's gonna happen, right? And then you'll see this big ramp up again, and then there's probably gonna be a lot of hype around it, But I can just foresee that when the prequel comes out, it's just gonna be just as the same as it was, in season 1 when Game of Thrones first premiered. It's just people hear about it, but are there going to be a lot of viewers? Maybe not, right? Season 1 only had 2.52 million viewers, average, right, per episode. That's not much.
And that's what I was kind of wondering here, Milt. I'm going, okay, is it still going to have enough momentum that it could possibly do numbers, say, in the region of, like, say, season 6, right? Or is it going to be possibly like half of this? I expect it to be higher than what season 1 was, just because, like, was it a blip on people's radar at the time? But I it's definitely got a name, since 2011 now, right? So, if the series came out, the new series came out tomorrow, I definitely expect it to do higher than
sure. But if it comes out like in 3 or 4 years, right? Then what?
Well, I'm sorry. I was talking over you, Mel.
No. Sure. Yeah. I mean, if it comes out tomorrow, the hype is still fresh, right? Right. The story is still fresh. What if happens if it comes out in 3 or 4 years or 5 years? I mean, the American TV public, right? The American viewers, Americans in general, have very short-term memories. Okay, let's be honest with that. So I just can't see these numbers coming back in the first season of the prequel. In fact, I see it just kind of blasé, sort of like season 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe you'll get instead of 2.52 million for the first season, you might only get like 4 million, okay, average in the first season.
It's definitely intriguing, that's for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, but anyway, yeah, exactly, guys, about the short-term memory. And anyway, interesting stuff. Again, episode 6, most watched HBO episode of all time. What's coming down the pipeline for HBO, right? We got season 3 of Westworld, after the negative response of season 2, and we also got The Watchmen coming up, and I don't know what else HBO has,
There wasn't a lot that
pipeline.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I said there wasn't a lot that intrigued me when we saw the 500,000 previews prior to the episode airing. I think the Watchmen series was the one I was kind of most, I might check out the Watchmen.
Yep.
But other than that, I didn't see anything that was
that great, right? So
that was going, hey, watch me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the only thing I'm really looking forward to, and that's only because it has such a huge fan base already, is that Lord of the Rings prequel series on Amazon. I think if anything is gonna bust the numbers in terms of the viewership numbers and actually compete with basically the national networks, it could be that series, only because Lord of the Rings has been around forever and there's such a humongous fan base around that series, that fandom. So anyway, that is pretty much it, guys, in terms of the final viewership numbers for season 8. So I think we're ready now to give our top 5 moments of episode 6, The Iron Throne. You ready, Dawg?
Oh, definitely.
All right. And as usual, since Dawg is the visiting team, he gets to go first. And what is it, Dawg?
All right, folks, and this moment here, I'm going to call this Arya's big reveal. Okay, so I think this is around the beginning of the episode, I think, and we had just seen Tyrion walking for a long, long time, I think, prior to the scene, and then we saw Jon walking there was people just walking for a while. I think I even did a little funny video on Tyrion. He was just walking the whole entire time. And I had to edit like 2 minutes of walking, even. But so for the series finale that we waited for 2 years on, right? We saw about maybe about a good 5 minutes of just pure walking, leading up to this. And basically, we saw that Dany has that cloning facility going on, and there's a whole bunch of Unsullied and a whole bunch of Dothraki now. And obviously this was put in, I think, to kind of give that effect of, she's now, Saruman or Darth Vader, or General Hux of the First Order, right? So, but now Arya's kind of looking on, and as as I'm kind of thinking, oh wow, she's probably going to go off and attack Dany or something. Looks like I think. Yeah, this was right after I think Tyrion had walked off, and then Dany had walked off also, and Arya just out of the blue, and she left the horse. I don't know what happened to the horse, and I think I mentioned that last week too. I think that was that scene with Shadowfax was just kind of there for effect, right?
I think Gandalf took him back at the end of
episode 5. Gandalf might have needed it too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's a great observation, though. And but I think that scene was just there for effect of it's kind of like we'd been through so much of burning and burning and burning and burning that it was just kind of a calm down moment. Let's be with Arya and the horsey, but she leaves with the horsey and then walks back. And I don't know, she had like a Batman moment here, or one of those moments where she kind of jumped out and took out the Night King as Jon like turns around and she is just standing right in front of Jon, and Jon's like, whoa. And it was, I didn't feel it was right for the tone of the scene, because we just had kind of this, serious moment with Dany's speech and Tyrion walking off. And now we kind of, it's kind of meant for comedy, but it's not really super funny, right? I mean, it's just like, oh, there's Arya just popped out, right? And Jon's kind of, his facial expression, I just didn't feel like it was kind of the right time for that, kind of a funny moment about Arya's characteristics, if you will. Okay, so enough of that. Arya, with her keen abilities, right? And I mean, she knows smart people like Sansa, right? I mean, she knows smart people. She knows killers. She knows killers when she sees one, right? She tells Jon that Dany is a killer, right? So Jon, you better watch out for Dany. Sansa is going to be in danger. I don't know why I'm pointing at the camera like a moron, but
did she get that insight after watching like Dany slaughter like 500,000 people in King's Landing? Or do you think she knew that beforehand?
You know, Milt, I wasn't even thinking of that. That's how she got that. I didn't even put two and two together that it was, Danny burning like 500,000 people.
Yeah.
So that's where I was just dumbfounded a little bit. So thank God that Arya was there for us as the viewer to tell us that Danny is a killer and John should watch out for her. Milt, this is my number 5 moment of the episode, and it's an important moment because it's the moment when John is told by somebody other than Danny or somebody or just somebody actually comes up and tells him that Danny's a killer. It's important. It's an important moment.
Yeah. So Peter Griffin says that Danny only killed 999,999 people. One guy made it out, evidently. In the beginning of the episode, you saw that one guy like in tattered clothes walk out, right? And Shadowfax walked out as well, or galloped out. So 2 living creatures evidently survived that burning. So good job, guy in the tattered clothes and Shadowfax. And Dawg. This is kind of a crazy scene because at the start of Danny's speech, right, which only lasted like maybe 30 seconds. Arya was way in the back of the audience, right? And somehow she was able to kind of like sneak all the way up to the, to the podium, essentially, at the end of her speech, like in 30 seconds, with all those past the Dothraki, past the Unsullied, guarding, Danny, basically unnoticed. So, I'm not sure if the Unsullied were actually, channeling their inner, whites over there, where they didn't notice Arya sneaking around there, before she axed the Night King. So maybe it's the same kind of deal. Maybe the Unsullied are whites, or just as astute as whites. Let's put it that way. So anyway,
you know what? That would also explain Milt. That would explain how she's got all those Unsullied and Dothraki back.
Yeah.
Because off screen, Danny raised her hands up. And, some of her army came back. It looks like quite a bit of them, actually, right? So, and they're for the rah-rah section.
Yeah, great.
So, but if we look back at, like, say, the John's eulogy scene,
yeah,
right, there certainly aren't that many there.
No. Yeah, and so good job, Arya, for basically stating the obvious to John. Yeah, she is a killer, and putting those thoughts in John's head, right, about like, wow, maybe she is a bad person after all, or kind of crazy. So, the big reveal, Arya, MVP again for this episode, almost, sort of. So let's go into my number 5, and that is PETA. Rejoice. Okay, PETA, for all you people out there who don't know that acronym, is basically People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And remember, there was like so much shit about like John mistreating ghosts right throughout the whole season. In fact, I think more people cared about how John mistreated ghosts than they did about Daenerys Targaryen burning like 500,000 people in King's Landing, So priorities, right, people? Priorities. So anyway, but at least in this episode, towards the end, our hero, Luke Skywalker, a.k.a. Jon Snow, is redeemed in the eyes of animal lovers worldwide. All right, so, all right, John, good going, John. And, I'm not against animals, right? I love animals, right? Because I think they're really delicious. So, they're great. So, and he definitely was redeemed in my eyes, at least. And, what I thought was interesting about this whole scene? I mean, he didn't even say, hi, ghost, how are you doing? Right? He just kind of like gave him a little, kind of like a little pull on the scruff of his neck, and just patted him, and that was it. But then again, I think the last 10 minutes, there was nobody talking. Another interesting part in the scene was that in episode 5, you notice Ghost's right ear, his mangled right ear, is only like maybe half of it's like off, right? You kind of see the base of it still sticking up. But then in episode 6, what happens? Like most of the ear is off. All you see is like, it's basically the head, right? The skull with like some like missing hair, essentially. So what happened there? I mean, did Tormund mistreat Ghost? Or or did Tormund like take a chunk out of Ghost for breakfast one day? I mean, I don't know what's happening here. So tell me, frostbite?
I'm just wondering if he cut away some infection, maybe, possibly. I'm making up stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, something's happened to Ghost's, right ear. So I thought it was kind of interesting how, it kind of shrank. So I mean, I'm attributing it to frostbite, perhaps. Maybe, just kind of like turned black and fell off, or Tormund, was hungry and he needed a piece of air, to chew on, with the sour ghost milk. But I thought it was cool. I mean, I'm sure it was very heartwarming for everyone out there, especially the animal lovers, about how John, finally, this season, actually, basically just noticed Ghost and basically acknowledged his existence, because it wasn't that way throughout the whole season. So, cool, John. You're a good guy now. What do you think, Dawg, about this?
And again, believe it or not, I love dogs. All right. And I know he's a dire wolf, and I love all kinds of animals too, right? I like cats and dogs and, pretty much every animal there is. However, I know shameless marketing and shameless propaganda when I see it here, because it wasn't what was it, last week or a couple weeks ago, when everybody was freaking out because John didn't pet Ghost.
Yeah.
Right. Folks are all freaking out over
pretty
it.
Much.
Right. And then now all of a sudden we have a moment where he's petting the dog, and boy, it almost looks like he poked him in the eye, by the way. I got to go back and look at that again, but it almost looks like he poked him in his red eye at the end. I was like, geez, John, you have to poke him in the eye, So, but I thought that this was just like, kind of like, to kind of get at us animal lovers, right? It was kind of like, all the folks that love animals, we have, what we just said, 13.8 million or something like that.
13.6 million, yeah. And probably 80% of them love animals.
Love animals. And we're going to have this moment here, and they're going to love us because we had this moment right here. Everything else didn't make sense in between. However, at the end moment here, we gave you John petting puppy.
Yep. And you guys shouldn't be pissed off anymore, because now we know John really loves Ghost.
They did it to us the week before. Just come to think of this, right? They look at Arya and Horsey. We had Arya and Horsey the week before to end the episode, right? To kind of make us feel, because we all love Horsies too.
Yeah.
And Arya, and then now we have John and the doggy.
Yeah. I'm calling Arya's horse instead of Shadowfax. I'm calling her Pokey now, because remember Pokey? That was Gumby's horse. So yeah, so I'm calling that horse Pokey from now on. So there we go. So but Pokey was brown and the horse was white, but it doesn't matter. He's still Pokey to me. So that is my number 5. Basically, John becoming a great pet owner again in the eyes of millions. So
it's an awesome moment too.
It was an awesome moment.
Folks are always, when they look back at this episode, they are going to remember the scene.
Yep. And we're now going to go to Dawg. Your number 4. Go.
All right, folks, and this is my number 4 moment here. Is basically after John gets this, this shocking information, the shocking reveal that Dany's a killer, folks. Right. So, now he goes to visit Tyrion here, which I don't understand. There's a lot of gray areas about what happens to prisoners and how fast they get executed, and who can visit the prisoners and things of that nature. So, because when we look at the week, I think prior to this, right, is when we lost Varys, right? The departure of Varys. It just seems like once he got busted, he was on his way to go see Drogon, right? It was that quickly here, right? He just threw his, hand of the queen pin down, and he's basically, just as guilty of treason as Varys was. Why isn't he up in front of Drogon? That was kind of my question here, but to get to the gist of this, I do want to say one thing though. Fantastic job by both the actors here, right? And this is another shining example of why Peter Dinklage does get his Emmys and awards, and how he makes the other actor in the room with him better, right? So I thought this was some power. Maybe some of the things didn't make sense that they were possibly saying back and forth to one another. However, I will say the performance of the actors was spot on, and just absolutely awesome for both of them, right? So it didn't make sense to me that Jon didn't get, because Arya just told us again, folks, that Dany's a killer, right? And why he doesn't understand that taking Dany out at this point is a problem here between them, right? So basically, this is the plot to overthrow Dany, right? This is kind of like Yoda, if you will, and Obi-Wan. They're kind of their last stand after Execute Order 66, to try to to try to take down the Emperor and Anakin Skywalker, if you will. So it's kind of like a Revenge of the Sith moment here. If you remember Yoda and Obi-Wan after after all the Jedi were kind of killed at the temple and that, and they kind of go back and team up, and they're like, we got to go out, and so it's kind of our scene like that here at this moment here. So powerful scene with these two. What was your overall take on this, Milt?
Well, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, I thought this was, again, and I agree with you that this was a great scene in terms of the acting, right? Because it was probably our longest one-on-one conversation between Jon and Tyrion in the entire series, and and they've always had a certain chemistry when they actually appeared on screen together. So I think that was good. The thing about Tyrion, which kind of confused me or kind of bugged me a little bit, was that I don't know how much of his venom that he was spewing about Daenerys, trying to get Jon to kill Daenerys, was really more personal, right? Because he just saw his brother and sister die, right, dead essentially in the caverns. I mean, if Tyrion didn't see them or didn't know that they were dead, would he have been basically aching to tell Jon that yeah, she's a killer. She's a killer. We got to form this conspiracy. Where we're gonna have to overthrow Daenerys and get her out of the picture. Because you'll make a better king. Than she would ever queen. Yada 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 and that kind of stuff. I don't know about that. Jon's hesitance. Even after that big reveal by Arya that Daenerys is a killer, I think has to stem more from his honor system. Right. He bent the knee to Daenerys. Right. He must be loyal to his queen, right? And, he says it over again, right? He says it over and over last episode and this episode. He'll say it again, in the next scene with her. And, he's conflicted. He's Luke Skywalker, basically figuring out whether or not, he should join his father, in the dark side. That kind of thing right now. So, it was a good scene. The whole conspiracy thing was kind of weird, but hey, whatever. Because come on, Tyrion's in jail. I mean, what can a little prisoner do, right? Basically trying to convince the King of the North or the Warden of the North at this point. So, it was cool, I guess. It was a good scene. I mean, the actors needed their screen time, obviously, for this one.
They kind of had a throwback. To some of their dialogue from, I think season 1, when he was asking them about, you used to serve that, just the other day you were serving that queen. And he was like, until I didn't, or something like that. It was kind of like, until your brother killed that king. That dialogue back when they were on the King's Road off to the Wall, and he was like, until my brother killed that king. Yeah. So it was kind of some throwbacks to some old, kind of the way they talk to each other, kind of thing, kind of like a, it wasn't their last scene together, but it was kind of like, and I think, and Peter Griffin, fantastic point you made in here. And I think that's why I was so also high on Kit Harington for this scene, was this was a scene that we finally got to hear him say something other than she's my queen, fall back. And I don't want it. I think those are like his main lines this season.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, and basically joking around with Tormund also. That was pretty cool. After the battle at Winterfell. So and then I have to mention, I guess, another throwback, right? It was to Maester Aemon, right? About love is the death of duty, right? And duty is the death of love, right? That Tyrion in his brilliance just basically turned it around. And maybe that's what actually convinced John, or almost pushed him over the edge, was that one line, death is duty is the death of love. Because he played John's sense of duty, right? Being, Ned Stark's son, honorable son. So
great point, Mel.
So, all right, cool. Good job, Dawg. Number 4, the plot. Oliver Stone would love this, by the way. And number 4 on my list is none other than lifting bricks. Okay. And why is this so crazy? Because look at the screen, guys, and episode 5. I made a little gif out of it. Okay. Basically, Cersei's hugging Jaime, and the whole freaking Maegor's holdfast is collapsing on top of them, right? There's basically a lot of rubble, okay? The whole thing's basically filled with rocks, okay? Okay, a lot of heavy rocks. But all of a sudden in episode 6, it's all clear. What happened to all the rocks? Did a bulldozer come through and just basically, basically shoved all the rocks out? And why is Balerian's head still intact? If anything, Jaime and Cersei should have ran and hid under Balerian's head, and they would have survived. Right?
Absolutely.
Right? Look at the skull, man. It's intact. It's totally intact. So I don't know what's going on there. So this is a definite continuity error, and it's really, really, it's really, really strange that they actually put us in. I understand that Tyrion needed some closure, right? That, his family was dead, right? Because that probably pushed him over the edge in terms of wanting to basically kill, Daenerys, or actually overthrow her. But to have a scene like this where he's just kind of walking through, what appears to be a pretty unscathed, portion of Maegor's holds fast. But, in the previous episode, it was all basically collapsed. It doesn't really make sense to me. It didn't really jive here a bit. It didn't jive at all, actually. So, I don't know. Maybe Drogon came in there and basically started clearing it out with his wings or something like that. And that's why it looked that way. But, I have no explanation for this, okay, as to what happened here. Again, bulldozers, Westerosi bulldozers is my explanation of this. But it was an obvious error somewhere in here, and I just had to point it out because I think it was pretty funny. So, what do you think, Dawg?
I think they filmed, seeing the dead bodies prior to the ceiling coming down, basically. Maybe that's possibly what happened here, but it's an obvious, super error here, and I've kind of felt bad because I know there was a lot of folks that do love this episode. And again, if you love this episode, awesome, right? That's fantastic. But there were just some things that I had issues with. This was a scene that kind of gave me an issue with this. That just gave me an issue with the episode overall, right? I just felt that, seeing things like this, I was like, what's going on here? It just feels like they're, like they feel like we're just absolutely not intelligent folk, if you will. And, it's like, because we saw the ceiling absolutely come down. Yeah. However, I will say this is a scene where, I give it that little bit of that oomph over The Last Jedi because of Peter Dinklage at the end, because of how he really showed that emotion of, seeing Jaime. But I really liked that he started breaking down when he saw Cersei first. I just thought that was really intriguing and I thought that was kind of a cool thing that, as bad as Cersei's been to him, when he confirmed that Cersei was gone, that's when he started breaking down. However, as I'm watching this episode, as I'm watching this unfold, I'm laughing, right? I was kind of cracking up because of the ceiling being repaired. And then I was like, it was just so predictable. I'm like, he's going to find his hand. Yeah. Right. He's going to find his hand and he's going to take like maybe 1 or 2 bricks and he's going to find Cersei or he's going to find Jaime. Right. And I think it took him 3 bricks. 3 bricks. Cersei. The same as to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop. Yeah. It took him 2 more bricks to get to Jaime. And but then at that point, because I was laughing at how predictable it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
I kind of felt bad because I'm looking at Peter Dinklage just give an absolute awesome performance at the same time. So I did go back and rewatch the scene because, yeah, Peter Dinklage was absolutely awesome in this reveal. And again, I think the most intriguing part, if we erase all the editing nonsense and the errors that were kind of made here in front of our eyes, when we look at, I think what's more important is, when he sees Cersei first, he breaks down seeing Cersei first, and then he really breaks down when he sees Jamie, of course. And I was wondering what your take was on that. No?
Well, on that, basically, even though Cersei treated him like shit and basically hated them, he still loved her, right? Essentially, I mean, he still loved his family, and I think that's why he broke down. Of course, Jamie and Tyrion always had that special good relationship with one another, and Tyrion basically probably broke down because he basically betrayed Daenerys just so Jamie can live, and to watch Jamie die, right? It basically hurt him a lot. I mean, his plan failed. It's. I don't know. To me, this is pretty odd. This is a really bad error. Okay, and again, I mean, I'm not gonna be negative. Okay, because in this whole series, right? We're being more humorous and kind of snarky about the whole thing, but the acting was great. The scene, had its use, right? Essentially, the whole point was being that it basically, I think, pushed Tyrion over the edge into actually, deciding that, hey, he better tell Jon, hey, she's not fit. You better get rid of her. But it was just so obvious. I mean, this was worse than the flight of the Ravens during the during the capture of the White up north. How they traveled 1,900 miles in less than 24 hours. But anyway, that's check out Dawg and I's stream on that. It's top 5 WTF moments of Game of Thrones, where I talk about the flight of the Ravens. So anyway, but yeah, it was a good scene. I understood why it happened. Why it was done, to provide context for the next scene, between Jon and Tyrion. But hey, this was pretty obvious. It was a pretty blatant mistake, a continuity error almost. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this scene. And we're going to go to Dogs. Okay, number 3. We're in the top 3 here, guys.
Yeah,
take it away, Dog.
Good night, folks. I was going to say, I'm saying hi in the chat also, but. Okay, folks, this is our big moment, right? This is after Execute Order 66 from last week. And now we're going to have, the end of Darth Danny, if you will. There's so many little Star Wars references, I thought, to this scene, going back to Padme and Anakin, right? We can make the world, the way, it ought to be kind of thing. The other people don't get a chance to choose. And if you go back to Revenge of the Sith and just kind of watch Anakin and Padme, after Padme has found out that that Anakin killed all those younglings, right? Just kind of like how Jon starts yelling at her for the children that have been burned and things of that nature, right? It's the same exact scene here, and I don't know why I put Scarlett O'Hara in this. I was feeling Scarlett O'Hara here for some reason, and. So shout out to Vivian Lee here tonight. And then again, okay, so, I'm looking kind of at so the buildup of all that. So now instead of a lightsaber fight, right, basically they kiss, and then Jon kind of, does a kind of a twisted Romeo and Juliet ending sort of thing here, right? But as Danny bleeds out or whatever happened to her, right, I was such a big Danny fan, so this kind of broke my heart to kind of see her go out like this, folks. So if I don't kind of describe what happened to Danny, to the T, please forgive Dawg here, right? But basically, Danny goes down, and then Drogon comes up, and just as I predicted, all right. I didn't predict this. I asked the question. I didn't predict this, but I had said if there was one human being in all of Westeros that Drogon would not attack, it would be Jon Snow. And folks were like, Drogon would totally attack,
No, yeah,
which he still might, but I was like, however, there might be one person, and that was John, so he didn't attack John. We had that Mufasa Simba moment here.
Yeah.
Right. Again, I knew what they were doing. I knew what Dan and Dave were doing when they did this. I knew that this was going to be like, oh, poor Drogon, and oh, it's the Mufasa scene. It's the same exact scene as Mufasa.
Exactly.
Trying to
get
my
to your
father's
dead. Yeah. So anyway.
Right. It's exactly what it was. And then just like how we talked about Jon Snow and Ghost, right? But as far as the story went here, this was pretty much a ripoff of Revenge of the Sith, a little bit of Return of the Jedi, a bit here with. I put the picture of Darth Vader. Even I called this the end of Darth Danny, which is just kind of the end. Just kind of like the Palpatine here. What? I kind of think the throne's more of the Palpatine in this, and because Drogon's kind of looking at Luke Skywalker, Jon Snow, and then he's looking at the throne. He's looking at Luke, and then he's looking at the throne, and then he decides to take out the throne and now was Drogon so intelligent that he understood the symbolism, that basically the Iron Throne was, the Emperor Palpatine, the ring, the MacGuffin, that basically, that would kind of, bring light back into the universe or whatever, right? It would destroy the blight kind of thing.
Yeah, you know what? Great point about like the Iron Throne being Darth Sidious, because the Iron Throne may symbolize basically the corruptor, right? So basically, Darth Sidious is the corruptor in the Star Wars universe. The throne is the corruptor in the Star Wars universe. And yeah, Darth Vader is definitely could be Danny, and John is Luke Skywalker. But the difference is that Luke Skywalker kills his dad.
Right. There's a little bit of differences in here, but yeah. I can see little pieces of different films and stories. And that's kind of why it's just kind of a jumbled thing there. But again, how you brought up that throne is kind of the ring, right? It's our corruptor. Great. That was great how you put that. It's our corruptor in this story here, because I don't think that here was my issue with this whole thing with Drogon taking down the Iron Throne though. Because, a lot of folks have brought to the attention, they're like, that is awesome. The dragon knew that was the corruptor and we need to destroy the corruptor. And he did that. That's all fine and dandy. However, if the dragon was so intelligent, if the dragon was intelligent enough to know that was the corruptor, why didn't he, in the last episode after the bells, decide that when Danny wanted to burn all those women and children, to just kind of stop and say, no, Danny, we're not going today.
Exactly. Right? No, exactly. And I was going to bring that point exactly. If he was such an empathic character, to basically, care for his mother so much after she died, and then afterwards, intelligent enough to basically distinguish that, hey, John may be right here. It's really the throne and the motivation of basically going after the throne is what's causing her craziness. Right. Maybe Drogon would have been smart to say, hey, this is wrong. We're killing a bunch of people here for absolutely no reason.
Right. And because other than, I think in season 5, Milt, where we had the child, right. But we had never seen if Drogon actually did that to that child. He probably did, but that was all off screen. Yeah. But other than that one child, right. Drogon has never just devoured a city on his own, or he's kind of gone after military targets, pretty much, throughout this entire series.
He killed Rando and Dickon, or Dickon,
right? And that was an order, and those guys were military guys,
exactly, too. Yeah.
So, but it just didn't make sense. I would have. It didn't make sense that he was so intelligent to take out the throne, but he wasn't intelligent enough to, or, his alignment kind of wasn't, good enough to kind of say, hey, Danny, let's cut this out for a bit here.
Yeah. So, Dawg, smartest dragon, Smaug, Drogon, or Elliot from Pete's Dragon?
And Elliot got captured. And yeah, Smog was kind of letting his guard down. He didn't even know about that. That hole in his chest.
Yeah, that bolt.
That was basically his Achilles heel.
Yeah,
was that hole here, right? And then now we're on to Drogon, which I would like to believe. Drogon's pretty smart. He seems like, other than this one issue I have with the throne, he knows to take that out, but he doesn't know to like stop. When the other folks have surrendered, and that's where I'm docking him some points here. You know what? Elliot knows how to roast apples. Like he knew, and that was a way to my heart right away. When the first time I saw Pete's Dragon as a child, I'll never forget him roasting the apples, and that looked absolutely delicious. And I had to have a roasted apple after the movie. And so I'm going to give it to Elliot here tonight.
Yeah, because Elliot can control his flame, right? He can roast an apple and probably can just basically roast like hundreds of thousands of people. If he wanted to as well. Right, Drogon only has one temperature, right? He has no control over his flame. So I mean, in terms of
and one final thing about Elliot, I mean, it's pretty clear cut who his enemies are. He knows who his enemies are versus his friends, right? Whereas it's kind of a gray area. I'm feeling kind of here with Drogon a little bit here, where Elliot, if you're buddies with Elliot, he's probably a hell of an ally to have.
Yeah. And here's the granite person here. Puff the magic dragon, live by the sea. All right, so we're done with that. So there we are with Dogs number 3, Darth Danny. It was a good episode. Poor Danny, R.I.P., rest in peace, Daenerys Targaryen. Kind of a crazy ending. I would have liked it a little bit more if Jon stabbed you through the heart with long claw, and not just some random dagger. But hey, it is what it is. So there you go. So we're going to my number 3, and that is the small council, which essentially the most unqualified small council in the annals of Westerosi history here, guys. Plus a made-up new position, the small council, the Master of War. I guess that's sort of like the Secretary of Defense, which used to be called the Secretary of War when it was first done. So now they're calling it the Master of War here. So who do we have here as basically the small council here? Really qualified list of candidates here. We got the ex-virgin, okay? We have the cutthroat. We have Grover Cleveland. Does anybody know who Grover Cleveland was? He was the he was the only president to serve two non-consecutive terms as president. Just like Tyrion, he's serving 2 non-consecutive terms as Hand the King. he is now called Grover Cleveland. And we got Han Solo as Master of Ships, right? Right, that's novels, obviously. And we got the dropout, Grand Maester Samwell Tarly, who doesn't even have a chain. I mean, he was an acolyte. He didn't even forge a chain yet, but yet now he is the Grand Maester. So there you guys have it. This is the small council that that's going to usher in a new era of government in King's Landing. And the Song of Ice and Fire book was sort of cool. It was sort of Lord of the Ring-ish in a way. And it was written by Ebros, who is actually more qualified to be Grand Maester than Sam, but that doesn't matter. And unfortunately, Tyrion was ignored in that one. So, sorry, Tyrion, for being ignored. But how did this happen? Because, I mean, okay, I get Brienne being Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, right? Lord Commander of the Kingsguard has an honorary seat in the small council, right? It's not a natural position. It's an honorary seat. Okay, how is Bronn all of a sudden the richest man in Westeros? I mean, basically, he threatened 2 people. Okay, one of the people is dead, right? Which is Jaime. And Tyrion is not the Hand of the King, so Tyrion has all the power now. Tyrion can just order Bronn be executed. And he doesn't have to give him anything, give him any castle or anything like that. So how did how is Bronn even qualified, in economics? Like, does he have a master's degree in economics or something like that? Is that how he became Master of Coin? Grover Cleveland, he's shown that, he was a good hand in the beginning, okay, in season 2, but that was because he was working with a really, really shitty king, right? And also, okay, I get Han Solo or Davos being master of ships, right? I mean, he does know ships, but he knows how to use ships in terms of evading a large fleet, right? He doesn't really know how to actually build a large fleet, right? He's the evader, not the evadee here. So that's kind of a weird thing, but I get it. You know, he's the Onion Knight and he's a ship guy. And Sam Tarly is, you know, I already said it. You know, how can he be Grand Maester with no links? So he did suggest democracy, which I'll get into later on, but maybe just the fact that he suggested democracy puts him into the position as Grand Maester. That guy's pretty smart. So there you go. That's my number 3, the small council. And Dawg, what do you think about this?
That's a great scene. I'm trying to think. The Ex-Virgin. That's a great name. I was going over my favorite. I mean, all of them are absolutely fantastic names. Well played with the Grover Cleveland.
Yeah.
Awesome job there with Tyrion being named Grover Cleveland there, folks. So a little history for us as well tonight. And I think you mentioned, out of all of these folks here, I think Davos, I guess if we had to say he makes the most sense for making the least amount of sense.
He kind of makes the most sense. Him and Brienne, perhaps, as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
And possibly Brienne there. Although, you know, we have an issue with, she's kind of sworn to Sansa Stark.
Exactly. Should she really be Queensguard in the North?
You know what? I do have a question for you.
What?
Actually, if how you go to the Night's Watch, right? Mm-hmm. And like all your crimes are kind of forgiven, right? As long as you hang out at the Night's Watch. Mm-hmm. I know, like if you go to the Kingsguard, like you can't marry and stuff like that as well, right? You're in the Kingsguard. Does being in the Kingsguard, take away your oaths? Does that absolve you of those?
I have absolutely no idea. I mean, maybe the king has more power than the queen of the north, right? Even though they're supposed to be independent kingdoms, right? Maybe, he has more pull, so he can basically take a Lord Commander of the Queen's Guard, which is her old position, or would have been her position in the north with Sansa, and promote her to Lord Commander of the King's Guard in King's Landing. I don't know, man.
and normally that would totally make sense to me, Mel, except in this situation, Sansa said, "Hey, I'm not bending the knee."
Yeah, they're equals. Yeah.
And so maybe she just kind of gave Bran over to Bran as a gift, sort of like when Luke was trying to give Jabba the Hutt, C-3PO, and R2-D2 possibly here, right? Mm-hmm. So, but now Sam, he didn't even get. I mean, he was pretty much he was running away from the Maester folks right at the Citadel. I mean, however, we were having a little conversation earlier about I think college days and things of that nature, Milt, where we basically go to classes to learn how to read textbooks.
Yep.
So I will give Sam some pull on that he was able to read the textbook to save Jorah the Andal, right, from his grayscale, so he could save Dany, so she could burn all of those innocent women and children in the next episode. Or in the next few episodes here. Bronn, as far as being Master of Coin, he had to ask Tyrion for a raise, I think, in season 2. Yeah. So I was having a little issue there because I was like, how in the hell can you be asking for a raise and then and then all of a sudden you're Master of Coin now? Now I know he asked, I think in another episode, I want to say Bronn didn't even know how lending worked. Right, he was just like, "What if I don't pay you back?" Right. So now, one thing is, right, folks, if Bronn, he is doing the opposite of what Littlefinger was doing, whereas we had found out that Littlefinger was borrowing a lot of money. Right. It seems like Bronn's not on that page of borrowing money or possibly paying that back. So I'd imagine if Bronn lends folks money, it's probably a smart thing to probably pay that back.
Yeah. I mean, Bronn will definitely be a really, really good debt collector, right? I mean, Bronn will break kneecaps to get his money back, right?
I'd imagine so.
Yeah. Now, Now, and the $1 million question, guys, the $1 million question, okay, in all of this, all Game of Thrones is, hey, the Crown still owes the Iron Bank a bunch of gold dragons. So, how is Bronn going to deal with the Iron Bank? So, tell me. The Iron Bank always collects their money, and we haven't seen Iron Bank at all since season 6.
And because I want to know what happens.
Yeah.
Like, because Bronn had asked that question before. What if I don't pay him back? What if I don't pay you back?
Yeah.
You know. So what if I want to see that situation where Bronn says, "I'm not paying you back, Iron Bank."
Then Iron Man's going to send a bunch of faceless men after Bronn, and Bronn will no longer be Lord of Highgarden. So there you guys go. So that's my number 3, the Small Council. And we're down to our top 2 now, guys. But before we hit our top 2, guess what time it is, Dawg?
Oh, it's my favorite time. Look how excited I got first. I haven't been that excited since, season 7, I think. So
there you guys go. It is the wheel. And this time, we don't have any predictions for the next episode because we're done with the series. So, but we have a lot of questions about other things like the prequels, perhaps. So, Dawg.
And
ask
folks,
a real question about the prequels.
I do. It's an important question to me, sort of, right? But I've got to ask you here first. And forgive me, I was going to do the research on it, but I kind of heard a rumor is Naomi Watts going to be in the prequel series.
Yep.
Did you hear that?
Yep. Heard that.
That's a confirmation.
Yep.
Naomi Watts is one of my favorite actresses since like Days of the Ring and 21 Grams, and I just think she's an awesome actress. So I think she might be the Sean Bean, if you will, in this series. Now my question is, I don't know who her character is. I don't know her lineage, anything of that nature. But I want to ask the Wheel.
Okay.
Wheel, do you know who Naomi Watts' character, or is Naomi Watts' character? Does she have some sort of lineage to any of our characters that are currently on the Wheel? Is she blood? Does her blood run? You know, do you get where I'm going here?
It's basically who on the Wheel could be like could Naomi Watts be an ancestor of, essentially?
Thank you, my friend.
Okay, so
you put it a lot more simpler than I can.
Okay, so basically, who on the Wheel could Naomi Watts be an ancestor of? And let's see what the Wheel says about this. And the names on this Wheel are only the survivors as of episode 6. So no, as of the end of episode 6. So these are all the survivors left in Game of Thrones. So we're gonna go and spin a wheel, Doggy.
All right.
And tell me when to stop.
Big bucks, no whammies, and stop.
All right, we're stopping here. And Naomi Watts is the ancestor of Drogon.
Oh, she's the dragon.
She could be a dragon queen.
She's the freaking dragon. The Wheel knows.
And wouldn't that be awesome if she was like a mother of dragons?
That is freaking awesome, dude. I'm so stoked for this.
All right.
I hope Andy's writing this.
Yeah, I mean, I would buy that. I would buy Naomi Watts' character being a dragon queen. Why the hell not, right? So, yes. Okay, so my question would be for the prequel series, who would we actually see mentioned first in the prequel series of all these characters?
That's awesome.
Who here would be like? Who here would actually make some sort of weird cameo or basically, yeah. So anyway, let's go find out. So, and we're gonna go. And I'll stop it right now. And it looks like Brienne, perhaps. Now, Brienne is actually, speculated to be, hypothesized to be a descendant of Duncan the Tall. And maybe there might be a Duncan the Tall ancestor showing up in the prequel. Perhaps. I don't know.
I like that. And hey, who am I to argue with the Wheel? I mean, the Wheel is a freaking beast.
All right, guys. So, hey, first person in the chat to type in a question for the Wheel that has to be kind of relevant, we'll spin it for you.
And we have a wheel full of who's, folks, so it's got to be a who question.
Yep.
Who
And
is
we're gonna wait.
the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Who will? Yeah.
Lon Chaney.
Who is the ancestor of Donald Trump? Just kidding.
What's
I'm
going
not
on?
gonna throw any politics in here. Sorry, guys.
We know you got a who question.
Come on, guys.
As easy as they look. All of you are going, I'm stumped. I don't have a who question.
I have no questions. Okay, here it is.
Who will time travel to the past to be in the prequels?
All right, there it is. Okay, and that's Fandom D saying, who will be time traveling to the past? Hopefully it lands on Bran because he already has those powers, but we will find out.
That would totally make sense if it did.
And we will stop right now for Fandom.
Oh,
The person that's going to time travel is Hot Pie.
Wow.
Wait a minute, that. Hot Pie is going to be the traveler.
Yeah, he'll be the traveling cook.
Hey, Hot Pie maybe is the next Doctor Who.
Yeah. And to answer Terry T's question real quickly, Mel, she asked, who is Roger Daltrey's favorite character? And I believe that's Tommen.
Yeah.
Did you see what I did there?
Yeah.
More bad jokes next week from Doc, folks. So.
Well, I like the Hot Pie answer. I mean, Hot Pie could be Doctor Who. Why not? So, and maybe Shadowfax, the White Horse, is the TARDIS. Anyway, so we're gonna go. We're gonna go to our top 2 now, guys. So thanks a lot for basically joining us in our wheel game for this episode. And Dawg, your number 2 is what?
Okay, sorry. I have that bad habit of laughing at my own stuff sometimes.
Okay.
And Grumpy Cat's back, folks. He made it back again this week. I just couldn't take him down again. And shout out to Dorothy Gale, one of my favorite films of all time, the Wizard of Oz. And this is kind of how I felt here when Dorothy was kind of in the witch's castle, right? And this is how long you have the time to live, my dear, and it isn't long, right? And all that, and Auntie M and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of how I felt here at this point. I was just kind of locked in the witch's castle at this point here. And this is our last brood. I think one of my scenes prior to this was John plotting with Tyrion to take out Darth Danny. Mm-hmm. And now the shoe is on the other foot, if you will, right? So nobody broods quite like Jon Snow. And and he had the beard was kind of, we had some crazy beards going. I think after Danny dies, there's like just like a blank, like a black screen, right? And then we just kind of like go into the future, like maybe a few weeks or something. And all these crazy beards kind of come out. But this is kind of after John is going to learn that he is heading back to the Wall. And he asked the same question I've been asking. I think we asked this last week: is there even a Night's Watch left? Is there even a reason to go back up there? And again, I had issues with, how was Tyrion still alive and Varys was executed basically immediately? It didn't make sense that Tyrion wasn't executed. Prior, why he was even given enough time to even have some say in who the next king was. There was a lot of issues with that kind of thing, but we just basically find out that John's going to head back to the Wall. Nobody makes mention at all of his lineage. The art, he's the R plus L equals J star child of the series. And he's just heading right back to the Wall here. Mm-hmm. And Granite loves crazy beard, so that's a good thing. So it was definitely one of his favorite scenes, of course. And I had something else I wanted to mention about this scene that really kind of was just kind of bugging me, but I can't. Maybe I'll kind of think about. Maybe it'll come back to me in a second here. But what was your take on this, Mel? We find out that heading back to the Wall.
I mean, I think in Westeros, the beards grow just as fast as chia pets. Remember those things?
Chia.
Yeah, chia pets. Yeah. So and R.I.P. Grumpy the cat there. In terms of what the wall, what the Night's Watch is there for, I mean, I would have loved to see some sort of clue at the end of the episode as to why, the Night's Watch would be actually be needed. But as of right now, I see no purpose for the Night's Watch other than basically fixing that big gigantic hole in the wall at Eastwatch more than anything else. And even then, after they finish that gigantic hole, what are they going to do? So, because, the Wildlings are friends now, right? So, and there's no mention that Bran wants to protect the Six Kingdoms, Bran and Sansa now, because, the North is, south of the wall, that they want to protect, the Six Kingdoms plus Sansa's kingdom, from Wildlings. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the Night's Watch is doing there. I mean, I was hoping that the existence of the Night's Watch would have been justified in the final scene, okay? Because there were rumors about what the final scene was going to be, but it didn't turn out that way, unfortunately. So, yeah, but good brooding. I felt kind of bad for Jon, right? I mean, in a way, because he's been, he was King of the North, then he became Warden of the North, and now he's just kind of like, back and thrown into the Night's Watch again and banished, essentially, and, just to basically appease Grey Worm's sense of justice. So,
and my main, the main point that I forgot to mention, forgive me, folks, I was looking at Grumpy Cat and Dorothy, and I totally forgot the main point that Granite and Dornish once are mentioning in the chat here, is that why didn't Grey Worm just kill Jon immediately? Like I kind of talked about why Tyrion, why wasn't Tyrion killed like Varys immediately? Okay. And I mean, we saw Grey Worm literally killing the Lannisters soldiers that were, that had surrendered, and Jon tried to stop him prior to that. And now Jon kills Dany, and Grey Worm's just going to keep him as a prisoner.
Yeah,
and then
I mean, it didn't make sense to come. I mean, because also, no murder was proven because Drogon flew off with the body, right? So no body was actually presented. Without a body, you can't have a murder, people. Okay, so unless Jon was really stupid and confessed to a crime, that he killed, he was responsible for Daenerys' disappearance. Then I don't even know why he was arrested. Okay, so say that he was responsible. Okay, for Daenerys' disappearance. Grey Worm can't prove that she was actually murdered. Nobody knows that she was murdered. There was no witnesses besides Jon and Drogon, right? And Drogon left. So it didn't make sense. So maybe in the back of Grey Worm's twisted mind, maybe he thought, well, I can't really prove that Jon actually murdered Daenerys. So let's just throw him in prison anyway because he was the last person to see her alive.
All right, but I definitely think that we're as the viewer we're left to assume that he either did that or he either arrested him because he thinks that he did it, or either the other thing that Jon just went up to him and said, hey, because Jon has that weakness like Superman, Superman's weak to kryptonite, of course. However, his other weakness is that he always tells the truth. Right, like no matter what, he can never tell a lie, and Jon's he's the same kind of character. So yeah, I could definitely see Jon going up to Grey Worm and saying, "Hey, by the way, I remember that queen you're super loyal to, and you just killed all those innocent Lannister soldiers on a whim. Well, because, based on her orders, right? And we just almost had a fight in the street over that. Yeah, I just killed her, and if you're cool with that." Maybe I'll just go hang out in the cell for a while. But I don't think Grey Worm would have done that.
Exactly.
Grey Worm would have left the conspirator alive either. And Tyrion, I think he would have killed Tyrion also. Yeah. It made no sense and we talked about this the week before, I think, also, Milt, where we felt like characters just weren't acting like we're used to, right? Grey Worm wasn't acting like the Grey Worm that we kind of know. I didn't feel that last week even. Right.
I mean, it was weird, and also like in real life, when somebody confesses to a murder, right, they'll actually tell the authorities where the body is, right, so they can dig it up, right, to prove their guilt.
You can't.
But you don't know where the body is here. So I mean, it was weird, but hey, somebody had to pay for the Dragon Queen's disappearance, so it might as well be Jon because he probably did admit that he killed her, even though there's no proof that he actually killed her. If that makes sense.
And then I know I'm sitting there talking about kind of the negative things, if you will, here, right? But I guess in the gist of this, another thing I couldn't understand was like how John was just like, did we do the right thing? After all of this that transpired, right? Arya telling him, hey, dude, Danny's a killer, right? Arya told him this, and then he follows through with it. And he just literally saw all those people getting burned and all that stuff. And he's telling, now he's thinking that they didn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
I guess, I had forgot about the gist of the scene, because that's kind of what's going on here. John doesn't feel like what they did is right. And he almost feels like he should be executed as opposed to going to the wall, it seems like.
Yeah. And, and the interesting part about, John's arc in this whole story, in this whole episode also, is that there's no mention of him being the last Targaryen anymore. Notice that?
No,
being the last Targaryen, there are people who know that he's still the last Targaryen, but people are just like shutting up about that. And what happened to Varys' all of his letters that he's supposed to send out to all the lords? I guess he never did.
Right. And Bran had made such a stink about having to tell, like, why was it so important for Jon Snow to even know about his lineage?
Yeah.
Why was that even important at this, when we really look at this whole, how it ended now, why did Bran have to tell Sam to make sure you tell Jon? He has to know about that he is really Aegon the Sixth, right? Because that's going to have some sort of relevance other than putting a rift between Dany.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, other than kind of turning her mad, if you will, that's all R plus L equals J was really for.
Yeah,
was
kind
of use that to kind of move Dany over the edge.
Yeah, it was Bran's plan and Sansa's plan, right? It was a Stark plan, a Stark conspiracy, together to basically bring the downfall of Daenerys Targaryen.
And then when it's time to choose the king, we don't even mention him. No. We don't even mention his
heritage. Yeah, and Tyrion knows about it, and Sam knows about it. Oh yeah, but we can't talk about that. Sam wants to talk about democracy. He doesn't want to talk about Jon's true heritage. And neither does Tyrion, evidently. So there we go with that. And hey, you know what's interesting? Also, I just thought about, how did the Dothraki learn High Valyrian in that speech for Dany? Because the Dothraki speak Dothraki, they don't speak High Valyrian.
I was wondering that too, but I remembered. Cause I went, I was going back and I was watching some old footage. Yeah, and I think that first word she says, like koi koi. Mm-hmm. I think that means blood of my blood. But because I think when she starts that speech off, she's like koi koi. I might be totally mispronouncing that. So I was kind of thinking, okay. But I'm assuming that whole entire speech, after that was pretty much in High Valyrian.
Yeah, it was.
And that's a great point. How would they even possibly understand what the hell she's saying other than the the Unsullied? I would imagine understand her. But
it seemed like the Dothraki wasn't even there except to just scream, I guess, for the most part anyway. So maybe it didn't matter. So
I'd imagine the Dothraki know the common tongue, but they probably just pretty much stick with their own language.
Yeah. Weird. Anyway, so I'm done with that. So cool, man. The Last Brood by Jon Snow for Dawg's number 2. And my number 2 is The Birth of Democracy. Okay, this is where democracy all started with just a simple idea that was just ridiculed, okay? Samuel Tarly, basically, the quote, maybe the decision about what's best for everyone should be left with everyone. And then he gets totally shot down by these intellectual heavyweights such as Edmure, Tully, and Bronson Royce, talking about dogs and horses, or horses and dogs, or whatever the order was. So, and look at all these people that just kind of like laughed at him, you got some unnamed Vale Lord, okay? Even Sweet Robin's laughing at the guy. Bronze Young was awesome with his expression. Edmure Tully is, talking about dogs. Okay, then another unnamed river lord is kind of laughing. Then, Brienne's going WTF at this idea, and Davos has this puzzled look on his mind, right? And then all the Starks just looking at him like, what? What are you talking about? And of course, Sansa has a little smirk as usual, and even Yara Greyjoy and the Prince of Dorne are laughing at the poor guy. Everybody's just basically, trashing on poor Sam here for making, just basically suggesting, hey, maybe if you really wanted to break the wheel, why not have a democracy? But no, instead what we're going to do is that we're going to have a elected monarchy instead, because the new monarch doesn't have, is incapable of having kids, evidently. So we're just going to elect another one, and then who evidently is also going to be incapable of having kids, and then we'll go ahead and elect another one, because what's going to happen if after Bran they elect another monarch and they have kids? Is it going to turn into a hereditary monarchy, or is it still going to be an elected monarchy? So anyway, maybe they just hire eunuchs from now on after Bran, or hire impotent men or whatever, or Queen Elizabeth I, perhaps. But anyway, so I mean, I thought this was pretty funny. So poor guy got shot down, but I think we did see a little sprinkle there of perhaps a fundamental change in Westerosi politics with this idea. And maybe these people, the most powerful people in Westeros, may actually remember this, basically statement from Sam, suggestion from Sam, and actually do change Westerosi politics, say 50 years from now. That's my spiel on democracy.
Oh, I totally agree with you there, Mel. I can't recall any time when, and maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, there might be something like that where we've actually elected a monarchy, other than it seems like that's what happens possibly on Naboo in the Star Wars universe, right? It seems like they elect their queens there. But I've never heard of a monarchy where, there's an election happening.
Yeah, the only elected monarchy I've ever heard of was on Naboo with Queen Amidala. That was actually there. Padme was actually elected. So again, they took this out of Star Wars. Right.
And they were like, they can only serve 2 terms.
Yeah, exactly, as queen.
Because we don't want, I guess FDR used to be a senator, or he was probably king on Naboo for a long time. So had to put that 2-term rule possibly in here. A lot of things in this scene didn't make any sense, from the point that Grey Worm tells Tyrion to shut up, right? And Tyrion just keeps on talking. Again, I don't understand how Tyrion's even alive at this point, because it seems like Grey Worm has all the power now. As far as he's got the probably the most powerful army, and with the Greyjoy ships, it seems like they're probably. If I was a betting man, I'd probably put my money on Grey Worm's forces at this point.
Yeah, and they still have 50% of Dothraki, who charged into the Night King's forces, so still around. I mean, I don't think we saw like 50,000 Dothraki, but there was supposed to be like 100,000 Dothraki that came in with Daenerys in that square. I only saw like maybe a few hundred Dothraki. What do you think, Doc? So anyway.
There's so many little issues here I have with they gave us some fan service stuff with Arya acting like a badass, of course, with hey, talk about my brother like that again, threaten to have my brother killed again, and I'll slit your throat.
Yeah.
And then Yara's like, ugh.
Yeah.
And we're all like,
Arya is a badass. And what's up with Davos Seaworth saying that the Dothraki and the Unsullied can settle the Reach, as if like the Reach is like totally deserted. It's going, guys, only the Tyrell family were extinct. The Reach is the most populous region of all Westeros. Okay, there are several large houses. Okay. In the Reach, right? The High Towers of Old Town is a pretty large one. Okay, the Tarleys, even though without their lords, I mean, they actually have a sizable population. The Fossaways, right? There's also a lot of the Florents, right? That we never heard of in the show, except for the guy burning in season 2. But I mean, it's the most populous region. You can't just go ahead and basically populate the most populous region in Westeros with a bunch of Dothraki screamers and eunuchs. Okay, so it doesn't make sense, Davos. I don't know how you got that idea. If anything, you should be the one sending them over to Dragonstone, right? Pretty much a rock in the middle of the sea, right? They can populate Dragonstone if they want to. I don't know.
And I also felt bad for the Edmure actor, because when we, folks, when we look at Edmure's character.
Yeah.
And the last time we had seen Edmure, I think, was with Jamie in that tent. I want to say that possibly was his last scene. We knew he was heading back to the cells because Wilder had said that, he's back in the cells or whatever. And then we were just kind of wondering, did Arya let him out or anything?
Yeah.
But now let's take a look at Ed Murtully. From the first time we met him, as he was totally fumbling around and couldn't
he couldn't shoot that
arrow correctly, right?
Yeah.
He did not change at all. He is the same dude that he was the first time we met him. Nothing's changed about him. And there was a pretty powerful scene with Jamie before about, hey, I'm going to catapult a freaking baby over your castle, basically, right? I mean, it was kind of intense. He's been through some rough, intense moments, right? He's almost been killed. And you're telling me that this person is the same goofball that we met the first time. And it was just kind of a moment to kind of make Sansa look like she's freaking awesome. Right? So I just kind of felt bad for that actor, because that actor's awesome too. I've seen him in other series too, like Rome. And,
he's awesome in Rome.
Some other ones too. But and then how do some of these folks? I'm not sure. Like, who does Samwell Tarly represent? Does he represent
the Reach? Right. I mean, Hornhill. He must be representing the Reach at this point.
Still in the night. Like, why is he still wearing his night watch?
I don't know, dog. I don't know why he's still wearing his night watch, because after this he becomes the Grand Maester, right? So I guess being the Grand Maester is much cooler. I guess you get a change of clothes being the Grand Maester, but you don't get a change of clothes being Lord of Hornhill.
I have one final question for you. I have several questions on the scene actually, but I have one question for you. Is Bran's story the most interesting story out of everybody in the whole entire series? Right? Is he the name when you think who had the most interesting story, the most intriguing story in the whole group of everybody on Game of Thrones? Was it Bran?
Well, I mean, evidently D&D didn't think so in season 5 when he basically disappeared, in season 5 and didn't even show up once. I mean, most interesting story probably could be Davos. It could be Sansa even, or it could be Arya. It could even be Sam Tarly, in terms of the most interesting story. I mean, I think those four probably have more interesting stories than Bran. But hey, Bran's the three-eyed raven, and he is the collector of records too, right? So got to have that knowledge base as the king.
I mean, really, when I think of Bran's character, I mean, other than being pushed out the window, of course, right?
Yeah.
And probably the Hodor moment.
That peeping Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of something where I'm like, boy, I can't wait till next week when I get to see the next Bran scene.
Yeah,
that was never a case, I don't think.
Yeah,
maybe the Hodor moment, maybe that after that episode, but I don't think there was ever a time during this entire run that I was ever like, boy, I can't wait to see what's going on with Bran. Other than that moment, no.
Yeah, and speaking and Bran's, I'm not talking about Bran anymore. Yeah, but Edmure, how is Edmure able to have swing 5 lines in the scene, right? And get up and actually speak 5 lines. And we didn't hear anything from Sweet Robin except for an eye.
He gave that goofy laugh.
And he gave a goofy laugh, and that was it.
Yeah.
I wanted more Sweet Robin and less Edmure, guys. I mean, sorry. I wanted more Sweet Robin here.
All right.
But who was the funniest scene? Was that first Veil Lord on the top, right next to Sweet Robin, the slide, that first Veil Lord. He's the one that first started out busting laughing. So we watched that scene. That dude was funny, man. Whoever that Veil Lord is. I'm putting money, that Veil Lord is probably Lionel Corbray is my guess. So anyway, of the Veil. So, I thought this scene was crazy. But, it was good. It was nice to have that kind of that suggestion of democracy, at least finally, in the show. Maybe that was kind of like D&D's kind of version of breaking the wheel, just to basically have a suggestion so it basically stays with people, and people will think about it, in future times of political crises, which will happen after Bran the Broken dies. And I'm not even going to talk about Bran the Broken's name. Isn't that a bit insulting? If you really think about it. I mean, would you want to be called Bran the Broken? It has so many connotations. So whatever. So that's my spiel for number 2. So we're down to number 1, Dog. You ready? This is it.
Oh yeah, I'm ready, Mo.
This is the last. This is the last moment of Game of Thrones that we're gonna ever do, dog. So... All right. So our last top moment of an episode by Dawg is. Go ahead.
There's no place like home, folks. If you just click your heels 3 times, right, and just say "There's no place like home," right, and you'll be whisked away back to the north. And that's kind of how I felt here. By the end of this montage, we just had the king crowned. Bran the Broken, and I think we had our scene of their first council meeting. But now we have our end montage that's kind of going on. I'm going to focus pretty much on Jon Snow because he was my favorite character. Arya goes west of Westeros, of course, because she mentioned west of Westeros in a prior episode. So let's show her going on a ship heading west of Westeros. We just tried to get all this pack back together, but now they're splitting up again. So didn't they learn that the pack survives, but when they split up, it's not a good thing? But anyway, this whole the person who becomes king is not even in the end montage, right? Bran's not even shown other than being wheeled out by Sir Podrick now, So, but I was kind of cracking up at this. I don't even, you know what? No, I don't even think I listened to anything that Sansa said to Jon. Or Jon, I was so just out to lunch at this point watching this episode. After I'd found out that Jon was heading back to the Wall, and then when I saw this, I was thinking Return of the King when they were headed to the Grey Havens, and like when Frodo was saying goodbye to Sam and things of that nature. But right away, I thought the Wizard of Oz here, and I was just, as soon as he was going to Bran, I was just thinking, and I'll miss you most of all, Scarecrow. I was just totally thinking of that scene there, and I was just praying to God that he would say that. And I think I'll miss you most of all. But then he kneels down. But as far as the dialogue went, like I was so kind of like ticked off. I told you about that.
Yeah.
That kick I took by that 1/1 giant.
Yeah.
That's kind of when that had set in, and I was like totally kind of checked out of any dialogue happening on this dock. I think Sansa said something to Jon, and Jon said something back, and then Arya said she was going the west of Westeros, and then I was just waiting for him to say, "And I'll miss you most of all, Scarecrow." I didn't get that, but then he headed up. He followed the yellow brick road, and we got our Ghost and Jon moment there. Milt, that was one of his big moments.
Yeah,
was the PETA moment that he called it. Right. So I used Dorothy and Toto because that's what it reminded me of. Right. I mean, when we think of Wizard of Oz, I think that's a scene that folks are going to remember is Dorothy singing about Somewhere Over the Rainbow and Toto being right there with her, of course. Right. I mean, what a great film The Wizard of Oz is, though, of course. Right. So but
yeah,
that's kind of how I was feeling here. Looks like, I had these folks actually kind of characterized. It looks like Sansa got the brains. I was thinking that, the final person that Jon says goodbye to would be more of the Scarecrow.
Okay.
Here. So if I did that, I have to say Bran's the Scarecrow.
Brad's a Wizard of Oz, right? Wasn't he manipulating everybody the whole time? Isn't Bran a Wizard of Oz since he was always the guy manipulating, everybody during the whole show?
I think that he might have been the man behind the curtain actually the whole time. That possibly could have been it.
So what's Arya then?
That's what I'm wondering. Did Arya find her heart? Right? Is she the Tin Man here? Right? Did she have no heart? Now she's got her heart. And then Sansa now she was our cowardly lion, but now she is king. Ooh, look at how I brought that home. Sometimes I amaze even myself. Right? So she was our cowardly lion here, and becomes queen though of the North. Right? So she has her courage. And and then Arya has her heart, and she's going to follow her heart's desire to west of Westeros. And Bran has his brain. Obviously, he became the three. I was going to say the one-eyed raven. That doesn't make sense though, right? It's the three-eyed raven. And and then Jon heads back with Toto back up north. And now I think the bigger scope of things, folks. I think we talked about this again. some of our main favorite characters, right? Look at this, right? Bran becomes, I don't know if Bran's necessarily a fan favorite, say, right? But, he becomes king, right? So Arya is probably going off to be queen of that realm at some point, right? Jon's becoming king beyond the wall, right? He's going back to Kansas, if you will, in this situation here.
Hey, hey, Dawg, I just saw some other stuff here. Daenerys could be the Wicked Witch of the West, and the flying monkeys are the Dothraki and Unsullied. They're right.
Oh my goodness!
There you guys have it. We scoped it out. This is exactly the Wizard of Oz, guys.
And you know what? Samuel Tarly is kind of like a Glinda. He's kind of that positive. It's kind of a little bit there. I think he kind of reminds me of Glinda a bit.
Yep. All right. Yeah. And no. On a serious note, I mean, I'll talk about this later, but I just wish that last scene, that fade to black scene, would have showed us a lot more. Okay. I mean, from what I understand, since the sport, we were seeing the show's over now, but one of the spoilers, potential endings, was that Jon and Tormund were going to go ranging up north, and they would have basically, encountered like the death spiral, the spiral patterns of dead bodies. And that would have been so cool. And boom, and that would have been a fade to black, right? After they encountered the spiral bodies. Because then it would support, the existence of the Night's Watch. And hey, we still need to be vigilant. We got to rebuild that wall, yada, yada, yada. But no, we don't have that. So we have this mysterious ending of Jon just, basically going to the north. I'm not sure if he's ranging the wildlings, or I'm not sure if he's permanently going to go there. Because if he's permanently leaving the Night's Watch, isn't he breaking his oath again? And
I think he is the new he is the new Mance Raider. He is the king beyond the wall, and that's his realm now. That's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dorn's Ranch is tearing the mirror of Munchkin City.
That is awesome, Len.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay.
Fire over the werewood.
Yeah. All right. And the yellow brick road's obviously the King's Road, right? So anyway, yeah, it's all about the Wizard of Oz, guys. And remember, Bran was also the person that created that tornado that blew down Dorothy's home. So anyway, yeah. All right. So good choice. Great choice, Dawg. Number one, there's no place like home. And my number one is Discovering America, starring Arya Stark, right? Evidently, in addition to her being like this awesome fighter, who can teleport, right? Who can basically heal at superhuman rates, she's now an experienced navigator as well. So I don't know where she got these powers from. Evidently, Lady Crane just gave her that really magic milk of the poppy, and boom, she just basically, developed all these powers. So, good for you, Arya, if you can actually read a map and actually can read, basically the currents on a map and actually figure out your way west of Westeros. But, you did have a good scene of basically you folding that telescope. So that was pretty cool. So, yeah, Arya, an experienced navigator. So there you go. She will discover America. But that isn't really my number one. Surprise. It's not really Discovering America by Arya. It is, in fact, the Starks winning the lottery. And who's the biggest winner out of this? Caitlyn Stark is. Because think about it. And this was a meme that was posted in Gangbangers, I think by the Fat Dingo. And he was saying, and basically the meme says, when the Six Kingdoms are ruled by your son, and now the North is an independent kingdom, is ruled by your daughter, right? And your youngest daughter is living her dreams, and that damn bastard you hated is gone far away and banished to the North. Guess who wins? It's Caitlyn Stark. So basically, she won the lottery and all this. And yeah, great scene. No, but in really, and great scene, with like some really deep philosophical lines, like, Sansa saying, "I wish there had been another way." Well, yes, Sansa, there was another way. You could have just basically bent the knee to Daenerys and not, and basically not cause her to crack and basically burn 500,000 people alive in King's Landing, right? And of course, the what's rest of Westeros scene, that's very philosophical. Yeah, America. And then Bran was basically saying, you were exactly where you were supposed to be. Yeah, I mean, evidently everybody was exactly where they were supposed to be in the whole show. And if he knew that, maybe he could have actually saved a bunch of lives, especially those 500,000 people in King's Landing. But hey, whatever that. Besides those deep philosophical scenes, I thought it was a well done scene in terms of the actual farewell. I thought it was really, really sad. And, I think Maisie Williams did a really great job with that tear going down her cheek, right? Right after John asked her, if she was going to bring Nito. So that was really well timed. And it was really touching, especially that last hug between John and Arya. I thought was great. But then you had to spoil it by John bending the knee to Bran and Bran telling him that he was exactly where he needed to be. So anyway, I thought it was, it was a good scene. So it's probably the best scene I thought in the entire episode. And that's pretty much it for me. So number one is essentially the Starks winning the lottery, because in Game of Thrones, the good guys always end up on top. So what do you think, Dawg, about this?
Yeah, again, forgive me, Milt, because like I think I mentioned before, I want to go back and watch that again, because I totally was just kind of upset from what happened prior to, and then the way the setting was, I totally checked out again of the dialogue. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch. All I remembered Arya saying was about the West of Westeros thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, moving on. And I was just thinking of the Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz at that moment. But that is awesome that Catelyn Stark was the Sith Lord the whole time.
Yeah.
I definitely see that. She got all her dreams were. They all came through.
I mean, Caitlyn won the Powerball, dude. I mean, she's the person that won like $100 million in the Texas Powerball, essentially.
And we just went through this big shock reveal that that Cersei wasn't our main antagonist all along through this whole entire series, right? It was Darth Dany all along. Yeah. However, Milt, the Westerosi ninja, just proved tonight, folks, that the main antagonist in A Song of Ice and Fire is Catelyn Stark. So for all the folks that do not like Catelyn Stark and love to hate on Catelyn Stark, you had reasons why to hate on Catelyn Stark, as the Westerosi ninja has facts that he is,
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm actually pro Catelyn, because I think she's a really misunderstood character in the books. But I understand it. 85%, 90% of the population hates Catelyn. So, because, she was really mean to Jon. So, anyway, that's my number one. The Starks winning the lottery. And it basically segues from your number one about the, going back home. So, there you guys have it. That is it for our top 5 moments of episode 6, The Iron Throne. And we're just going to do a quick recap here starting with Dawg. Go ahead.
We did. Sorry, I was doing my little Rascals thing. Yeah, folks. So, my number one, again, was There's No Place Like Kansas, Beyond the Wall. And number 2 was Our Last Brood with Jon Snow and Tyrion. And then our number 3 was Anakin, You're Breaking My Heart, with the end of Darth Dany. And number 4 was our plot to destroy Darth Dany, was kind of like kind of our Yoda and Obi-Wan moment. After the Jedi were all kind of killed after Execute Order 66. That's kind of what's going on there when Jon visits Tyrion in his cell. All right, so the plot to kill Dany. And then number 5, folks, which, you know what, the more I think about this, Milt, I might have to change that number 5 to possibly even, you know what, that really possibly should be our number 1 moment in the history of Game of Thrones, was the moment that Arya had pieced together and figured out that Dany was, in fact, a killer, right? So that was a big, huge, shocking red wedding moment, if you will. R plus L equals J. Those things come to mind on the shock value here of when Arya tells Jon Snow that Dany was a killer. Yeah.
I mean, I think Arya's deductive abilities exceed those of Sherlock Holmes by at least 100%, if not 1,000%. And again, it is that magic milk with the poppy that Lady Crane gave her. After that, that's when she developed all those superhuman powers. Yep. So great list, Dawg. And my number 5, my 5 moments for episode 6 is number 5 is PETA Rejoice with Jon Snow, proving to everybody that he is in fact a really good pet owner. Number 4 is Lifting Bricks, and this is just a really, really obvious error in the show in terms of how can you have a collapsed building fall on top of Jamie and Cersei, but then the next episode, the building is no longer collapsed. And number 3, the small council, right? The most unqualified group of elected leaders or assigned leaders ever ever put together to run a country. And number 2 is the birth of democracy. We get our first hint at actual political change in Westerosi culture. So hopefully it can happen, even, especially after Bran dies, because there will be a political crisis. And number 1, Catelyn Stark winning the lottery. In fact, all the Starks won the lottery because they got exactly what they wanted at the end. But who got it the most? Catelyn. So their mother. So that is it. Besides John. So anyway, that is it, guys, for our top 5 moments of episode 6, season 8. And I lied at first. Okay, this is not actually Dawg and I's myself's last Game of Thrones stream. We have one more next week, and it'll be top 5 things that we would change in season 8.
Yeah,
is that right?
And it's going to be just season 8, folks. So
yeah,
so top 5 things that we would change. Basically, the top 5 things that kind of we would kind of make a change to.
Yeah, and then after the Game of Thrones stuff, we will be basically heading off into a different direction here, where we'll be talking about perhaps Cobra Kai and some other fandoms that we actually watch and actually enjoy. So but that's really it. Again, that is it for tonight. Thanks a lot to everyone in the chat for coming out. Really appreciate you guys spending your Monday evening here. Dawg, what else is going on with you, your channel?
And we have about 3 weeks, folks, and then I'll be out of that penalty box, and we'll be back to doing some live streams, kind of back to what we were doing. So you know what? I was going to do kind of like one of those old movie box office reviews I used to do, but I haven't been too hyped for the movie theater lately, Milton. I just saw Aladdin last night, and boy, that was a little rough there when Will Smith kind of gets in the picture. So so in the meantime, I'll be playing some tunes for you folks, and but just kind of getting prepped to get back to live streaming here soon. So appreciate everybody's patience with that, and so that's kind of what's happening. And again, we're gonna take a look at Cobra Kai and possibly Watchmen as well, and Star Wars, of course, too.
Yeah, and John H. Yes, trivia is every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and that's a weekly thing. And it's not just Game of Thrones. The only reason why it was Game of Thrones centric these past few weeks was because of basically season 8 and basically the last season of Game of Thrones. So we kind of just went Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire crazy for the past 2 months. But but trivia is going to always continue. There's always going to be some Game of Thrones content in there, and there's always going to be other stuff as well. And I think this Friday is going to be, I think Ben, Felicia, and Chrissy doing 52 pickup. I don't know what the topics are, but go check it out. And I think that is it for us tonight. Right, Dawg? There's nothing else going on?
I don't think so. No, I think it's been a lot of fun doing the Game of Thrones ones. I'm sorry, folks, if I if you really love the episode and I kind of am kind of like a sourpuss here, right? But I still love everybody, and and if you love the episode, God bless you, and I still love you whether you liked it or not. So, but if you hated the episode, you can always vent to Dawg too.
Yeah, And honestly, I'm not sorry about being snarky about this stuff because I've been doing that the whole season. So, and this is the way our streams are, right? I mean, nothing's really taken seriously, and we don't pretend to be very serious about what's happening with a fictional TV show written by incompetent humans. So anyway, with that said, everybody, thanks again for coming out. And we will see y'all later.
Ultra Ninja JK, dupla, jinxa, bota, chakra em cada linha de faca, face, macramé no micado, passo, espadas por frases, sintático, repara no que digo, é paradigmático, não tenho paralelo, sou para lado mágico, sabes como rolo, martelo pneumático, técnica secreta do monstro roxo, estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter como no jogo, só com uma espada nos tojos, plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem, nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave mãe, tu sabes bem. Somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster Jinx cabrão, respeito ao vais comer tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai. Vivo na espunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, ninja, frotas imperiais. E bate mal, logo bate mais. A minha crew não sem espelhos. Na rua, dragão azul, dragão vermelho. Sente o silêncio. Verso shinobi, nunca me canso. Sou de Nairobi, ágil como um ninja. Rápido como um ninja, letal como um ninja. Brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja. Forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja. Devo mesmo ser um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus? Ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus?